And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, we are going to be looking at some hot takes for every single NBA team. Now, I saw this in a YouTube video, and I'm going to put the link to the YouTube video in the description when I'm done editing, so that way you guys can go ahead and check it out and really listen to exactly what he said if you are interested. But I'm just going to read off like what it said in this website called Clarity, where it allows me to sort of like look at a video, and the video essentially summarizes what the speaker said. So I'm going to go ahead and read off. Let's start with the Boston Celtics. So he had concerns about the over-reliance on the three-point shooting for a championship run. Now, I actually mentioned this previously in the first segment when I was talking about Boston and them relying on the three-pointer. So with this in mind, I mean, like, I totally agree with this, and I don't think it's that much of a hot take because, like, it could go good or bad for the Boston Celtics. And, like, if you're a Celtics fan, you hope it goes good, but there's a chance that it might end up going bad. And this has sort of happened, and this has sort of been happening for so many years with the Boston Celtics. They end up just choking in a lot of these games, and it does end up going bad, like the over-reliance on three-point shots. Now, moving on to the Sixers, he is very optimistic about Joel Embiid's playoff performance and the team's system. So, obviously, like with Joel Embiid injured, he did say that he does plan to return later in the regular season, and that could mean that they could potentially, like, they could still have hopes for the playoffs. But I don't really agree with this hot take whatsoever. I think Joel Embiid is one of the worst playoff performers in the NBA right now. Both the eye test and the stats show this. Every single year, he just ends up falling short of like making it to the Eastern Conference Finals. The only MVP to never make the to never make a conference finals appearance. And with that in mind, I don't agree with this take at all. Now, next team on the list is the Knicks, and he declares this as the best playoff team since the Carmelo Anthony era after acquiring OG Anunoby from trade. I actually completely agree with this. Now, Carmelo Anthony's teams, they haven't really been able to like make it that far into the playoffs because while Carmelo Anthony's team in New York was getting good, LeBron James was in his prime with the Miami Heat. And I mean, honestly, he's probably still in his prime if you really think about it, but that was when LeBron was going on that stint where he made 8 straight finals appearances. And it's really difficult to make it far when you had to go up against the Heat in the second round. And, like, I actually think that this Knicks team could make it farther than Carmelo Anthony's Knicks' teams and could definitely make it to the Eastern Conference Finals and compete against the Boston Celtics. I really hope that happens. Now, for the Brooklyn Nets, he is very skepticistic about Cam Thomas's abilities and suggested that he may be a sixth man. Now, this is actually not a bad take. I totally understand that. Cam Thomas's defense is not that good. Like, he's basically a cone on defense, and however, he's very good on offense, but there are times where his offense might not be there. So having him as an option for being a sixth man, I think is a lot better than putting him in the starting lineup, but he has to get a lot of minutes as a sixth man. It's got to be like Jamal Crawford as the sixth man type thing. And it's like, if you're putting him on the bench, you have to also compensate him with minutes because he deserves those minutes. Now, the Toronto Raptors are next, changing perspective on trading Siakam due to recent roster improvements. Now, the Raptors and their season is it's basically done. Like, now that they don't, Scotty Barnes, he like recently underwent surgery on his left hand, and I don't think that even when Scotty Barnes was in the lineup, I didn't really see the Toronto Raptors making that much noise in the postseason whatsoever. So I actually don't agree with this whatsoever. I think they should have definitely traded Pascal, and they should just work on a rebuild and make the team better coming into next season. Now, the Milwaukee Bucks, he dismisses concerns, emphasizing their potent offense led by Giannis and Dame. I don't agree with this hot take either. Now, these concerns are real because Doc Rivers messing up in the postseason is real. And with that in mind, I think it's time to worry now for the with the Milwaukee Bucks as opposed to worry later for the Milwaukee Bucks. I've said this every single time. Doc Rivers, he does not make adjustments. Former players themselves even say that he doesn't make mid-game adjustments in the fourth quarter, or like in any quarter or in any playoff series, and it's not good. And the fact that like the Bucks had to replace their coach, like when they were doing just fine, I don't agree with that whatsoever. So next team is the Indiana Pacers. He believes that defensive improvements are possible without trades, highlighting scheme and player utilization. So this was before the trade, but it turned out to not be true whatsoever. Like their defense is just still bad. Their defense is really, really horrible. They haven't tried to even improve on the defensive side of the ball. They're just like meh, and they worry about more offense. And I really think that this is a mistake. To have that kind of philosophy, especially going into the postseason. The Cleveland Cavaliers, a hot take for him is that he proposes a trade, like he proposes trading Jarrett Allen to allow Evan Mobley to develop as the center. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about this. Seeing as Jarrett Allen is a former Nets player, I really think he's good and he really brings value to the team. Like, the Fro can get a lot of blocks, he gets a lot of rebounds, and he's very efficient from the field, finishing lobs, setting you good screens. It's like, what don't you want from him in a center? But I also see like the potential in Evan Mobley developing. Like, he has a jump shot, and he also has the defense, so he could definitely develop to being a better player than Jarrett Allen. But as of right now, I really think the Cavs are in a good spot and they don't really need to adjust any lineups. Now, the Chicago Bulls, they advise fans not to overhype Kobe White and cautioning against building the team around him. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about this, because they've had Zach LaVine for a very, very long time, and they haven't really done much with Zach LaVine. So maybe a change in scenery and like a change in like a new guard to build around is what this Chicago Bulls team needs. But we'll see what they do, and we'll see if they stick. I mean, they've been sticking with Zach LaVine, so I mean, who knows? But the Detroit Pistons are the next team. He argues that the team, despite the record, can still beat any college team. This is a no-brainer. And people who think that an NBA team could lose to a college team is out of their mind. Like, the NBA athletes are so much better than the college athletes, and it just does, like, I don't think this is a hot take at all. Like, even with the Pistons being bad, like, I really don't think this is a hot take, because the NBA level, the jump from the NBA to, like, from college to the NBA is ridiculous, and it's not going to faze any of these athletes that are in the NBA. Now, the Miami Heat are next. He praises the team's depth and improved roster, suggesting a better postseason performance than the previous year. I haven't really touched much on the Heat, and like most of the time when I do touch up on the Heat, I usually say that they're going to lose to the Bucks because I think this is their year to lose. I mean, it's win, lose to Bucks, then win, then now it's lose to Bucks. But again, like he does make a point saying that the roster has improved considerably compared to previous years. But I don't know, I'm just not feeling the Miami Heat this time. I'm not a really big fan of them. I don't really feel them at all. Now, next team is the Orlando Magic. So They suggest the need for a reliable point guard to elevate the team's playoff potential, and I actually agree with this. I think Paolo Banchero, he needs like another option on the team and a competent point guard that could not only make his life easier on the offensive side of the ball, so he doesn't have to do everything every single time, but like it could also like he could give Paolo much easier looks if he has a good point guard. I mean, imagine if he pairs up with Trae Young, because there are rumors that Trae Young like is going to get traded. So that could be a pretty good duo. I'm not entirely sure how they'll fare on the defensive end, but that could be a pretty good duo. Now, next team on the list is the Atlanta Hawks, and he questions the wisdom of building a contender around Trae Young due to historical challenges with small guards. And I understand where he's coming from in saying that like a lot of relying on small guards that can't really play defense it doesn't really win you championships, especially when you build around them. And being so ISO heavy that they are, if he's not really good on the offensive side of the ball, then the team is going to struggle tremendously. But I don't really think Trae Young is that bad. I just think like if he has the right pieces, he can take a team very, very far. He did this when he went up against Philly, making it to the Eastern Conference Finals and even winning a few games against the Milwaukee Bucks in that series. So I'm a bit optimistic with Trae Young, but maybe that's just because I have a bias, but I'm not entirely sure. The Charlotte Hornets, they should attribute potential success to actually wait, no, I'm not gonna do the Charlotte Hornets because this one is wrong. Now, the Timberwolves, he declares that the current roster has the best in franchise history, surpassing the 2004 team led by Kevin Garnett. Excuse me. And honestly, I totally agree with them because this is like the first time in a while that the Timberwolves have been like the number one seed. And even when they were with Kevin Garnett, they weren't the number one seed, but they were still competing in like the playoffs. So we'll just have to like wait and see if they can make a deep playoff run. But countless of times, Kevin Garnett with the Timberwolves, he would lose in the first round every single time, and it wasn't his fault because he had no help on that team, absolutely no help. But still, like this team, definitely like the best the Timberwolves have been in a while. Next is OKC. He advocates for acquiring another reliable postseason player to enhance the team's contending status. I 100% agree with this because, like, while they are great in the regular season, they haven't really shown me that they are experienced enough in the playoffs. So, with that in mind, we have to wait and see if they are the same animals that they are in the regular season as they are in the playoffs, or if they elevate their game. Next is the Utah Jazz. Now, he argues against trading Larry Nance Jr., expressing confidence in the team's current trajectory. That turned out to backfire because right now they just traded basically everyone that was important, and it seems like they're going through a rebuilding phase right now. And I honestly think it's a good move for the Jazz because they do have good pieces on the team. They just need to rebuild so they can get better pieces and or pieces that could help them. Now, next team is the Denver Nuggets. He highlights Peyton Watson as a crucial bench piece in the postseason, emphasizing his defensive skills. Now, I really don't I don't think that's going to be much of a factor when you have Jokic and Jamal Murray in the playoffs. They've shown that they can perform against anyone when the lights are brightest. So I really don't think that's going to be much of a factor. The Blazers, he suggests that Scotty Barnes might be better suited. Why are the Blazers talking about Scotty Barnes? That's a little bit weird, but I'm going to skip that. I guess the app's messing up. So the Kings, he acknowledges De'Aaron Fox's significant improvement as a three-point shooter and its impact on the team's success. So that is very, very true. I actually agree with that completely because like De'Aaron Fox, like I said earlier, he's better than Tyrese in my personal opinion. And he can definitely take a team far. He just needs the playoff experience now. The reason why they ended up losing that game in 7 games was most likely because they were nervous and Steph Curry was going off. Not much you can do when Steph Curry drops 50 points. The Phoenix Suns, he's very skepticistic about the contender status, suggesting that multiple changes are needed beyond firing a coach. And I agree with that because, like, you're not being a Brooklyn Nets fan, I've seen the ISO lineup. I've seen it before. And not a guaranteed to win you championships. Next is the Lakers. He stresses that firing Darvin Ham is only the beginning of necessary changes for the struggling team. I 100% agree with this. Darvin Ham, he needs to be gone. But there's also a lot of other things in this lineup that need to be fixed. I mean, they've been on a roll recently, but like they've been very disappointing. And when you have honestly, yes, I'm going to be like when you have LeBron James on your team in his prime, and you're not even in playoff contention, that is wasting a season. I'm going to be harsh on that. Like, I didn't want to be particularly harsh, but I am. Because every other team, when LeBron was on his prime, they've been able to make it. Now, with the Lakers, they've mismanaged this, and they've mismanaged LeBron and his team so poorly. And it's very difficult to watch. The Golden State Warriors, he warns that without a significant roster adjustment, Steph Curry might consider leaving in a few years. I don't think Steph Curry's leaving the Golden State Warriors. I think the Warriors have given him too much, and he's done too much for the Warriors for him to even want to leave. I think he's going to retire there along with Klay Thompson and Draymond Green, and that's really it. I think that's what's going to happen. Now, next team is the Pelicans. He contends that Zion Williamson's return to top form is essential for the team to become contenders. I agree with this 100%. They need Zion and they need him to be that dominant force, and I really hope that Zion will succeed. Other than LeBron and Giannis, he is one of the best finishers around the rim that I've ever seen. Being 6'6" and being that strong and as strong as he is, it's very, very impressive. I really hope he succeeds. Next team is the Houston Rockets. He praises Jabari Smith Jr. as an underrated young player with strong defensive and offensive skills. I mean, I'm a little bit reluctant on this. I'm not a big fan of Jabari Smith. I'm actually much more of a fan of Sengun, and I think that's the guy that you should build the team around him instead of Jabari Smith Jr. Next, and Jabari Smith, like, he has his moments where he's, like, really good on defense and stuff like that. But he also has his moments where he's bad on offense. And Sengun, I feel like, is much more of a consistent bet because, like, he's a good center. And that's sort of, like, he the hype is real around that kid. Next is the Grizzlies. He considers Ja Morant's injury potentially beneficial, suggesting that it could lead to a better future with a high draft pick. I understand this thinking. And, like, I understand, like, why the Grizzlies are sort of, like, tanking so they could get that better pick so that way Ja Morant can come in and play with a much better team. That would definitely help the team. But as of where they're looking at right now, like, in the regular season, like, it definitely, like, looks like they'll get a high pick in that draft. So this is a good move by them. Last team is the Spurs. And the content cuts off before the speaker oh, great. So I can't even talk about the Spurs. So that's it. I mean, should I give a hot take on the Spurs? I really don't have that much of a hot take for the Spurs because, like, there's not really much that needs to be said. I expected the team to be really bad. I didn't expect them to, like, I didn't think it would take Victor Wembanyama this quick to, like, develop into a very good player in the league. And seeing as how he's going to be the Rookie of the Year coming the end of this season, I don't really, like, I've sort of expected all of this, and I don't really have much of a hot take. So with that, that is the end of this show segment, and that is the end of the show. Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. And like I do every single time in the first and second segments, remember to tip and to donate to get your comments recognized. Use the link displayed below the ticker or the link in the description. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Really helps the show. Puts your comments directly in front of my screen. And that is it for today's show. I am your host, Nelson. And as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.